Hello, everyone. It is Candace Presley. I am the managing partner at Trinity Property Advisors. And, as we close out Women's History Month, which of course has been a celebration of women and our contributions to society, I figured we'd have a chat about women in commercial real estate and diversity. So I have two dynamic women in commercial real estate, Miss Bree Barrett from Equity Retail Brokers. Bree is an investment sales representative there. And I also have Miss Rachel Bliss, who is a tenant representation agent at Equity Retail Brokers. Hi, ladies.
Hi.
Hi, Candace.
So
Thank you
thanks
for
for
having
joining
us.
me. Yeah, thanks for joining me today. So I would love if you could all just give us a little brief intro about yourself and your real estate journey. Bree, you want to start?
Yeah. So, this was actually my first job out of college. So, I graduated from Syracuse in 2018. And, I played a Division One sport there. I played at a highly competitive level. So, I was kind of looking for, life after the game and something to continue that. And commercial real estate definitely brings that level of competitiveness and also, it's pretty team oriented. So I thought, I'll just give this a try. I didn't really know much about equity. I didn't really know much about the business. And I just, got my real estate license and took those courses. So, I thought I would give it a try and I've been here ever since.
Nice.
Um, but yeah, Rachel and I have a great team over there of mentors and stuff like that. So you know, even if you didn't know anything, they they push you right in and they really help us along. So yeah, it was just my first job out of college. I really didn't know much about the industry.
Nice, nice. What about you, Rachel?
I kind of had the same journey as Bree. Just fell into it. I didn't really look into it. Um, I am a Philly suburb girl from the heart. I did spend 2 years out on the West Coast in Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. Finished up my degree at Drexel. After school, just didn't know what to do. Actually, had a neighbor reach out to me, and that's kind of how I fell into this business. I do tenant rep across PA, New Jersey, and Delaware, and have loved it ever since. I've been doing it for about 2.5 years now.
Awesome, awesome. So, Rachel, you say Drexel. So, I actually thought I wanted to be an engineer at first, and I was going to Drexel, and I did a summer and a semester, and I said, okay, no, this is not for me. I did not, I did not like being in the lab and testing things. I'm a people person. So actually, I was working with one of my mentors who had a building right on Drexel's campus. And I would work there after school on the weekends. And he said, well, Candace, you're pretty good at this. Why don't you think about going into real estate? So fast forward, I transferred to Temple and I got my license while I was at Temple. I was a sophomore. And my first job was in property management. And I didn't like that either.
That's a lot.
It is. So I kind of stayed in the residential, kind of scheme of things. And then I always had an interest in commercial. I just wasn't sure how to get there. So fast forward, um, having a son later and going back to school is what kind of catapulted me into commercial real estate. I went to University of Florida and got my master's in commercial real estate, and that really opened up a lot of doors, opened my eyes, because there's so much more to real estate than just residential, like buying a house. There's
Yeah.
so much more, and I met a lot of great people and I made some really great connections, and that's kind of how it got me here. And I love it. I do not miss residential at all. It's so much more, um, you know, business oriented, numbers oriented. It's not emotional like residential, and it works for my schedule. So I'm loving it. I'm loving it. So let's talk a little bit more about being a woman in business in commercial real estate, let's talk about some advantages and disadvantages of being in commercial real estate.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, an advantage would be having a different perspective. I think any perspective, there's no wrong one, but I think it also really comes down to, being diligent and hardworking. And if you can get the respect from, as you said, it is a male dominated industry. And if you can get the respect from them, it's really not going to matter who you are. They're going to work with you because, of your mind and what you have to offer them.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Rachel, what about you?
Just to add on to that, I think women, and sorry to men, not bashing here, but we're a little bit more detail oriented. We go out of our way to give that higher level of service, and I think that plays to an advantage within the industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. As well as, like I mentioned earlier, with the like schedule, like when I was doing residential, it was 24/7. You have to have boundaries to,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? To actually, I would have to put my phone on do not disturb because people would, text all hours of the night, 24/7. Whereas with commercial, it's more 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. It's corporate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a mom. I'm a soccer mom. I'm want to be at my son's games on Saturdays,
Yeah.
and it works for me so much better, so I can be more, a part of my son's life.
Yeah. Well, and then also when we walk into a room, we're something new, we're something different.
That's right.
People want to come up and talk to us and say,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts?
Mm-hmm.
How about this? How would you approach this scenario? So
Right. And I remember, in my, younger years, just starting out, it almost was like you had to prove yourself in that you knew your stuff. You knew, the data, the, different analysis or how to analyze a deal. And you pretty much showed your knowledge with, kind of that breaking that barrier and showing that, hey, I
Yeah.
deserve a seat at the table.
Yeah, and it's like, how can you add value to the conversation and what can make you invaluable so they, don't look past you and don't look past, I mean, not saying this in a bad way, but don't look past the skirt or the dress. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, how can they listen to you as much as, the guy sitting next to you?
Yes, absolutely. So, in terms of supporting other women in the industry, how do you feel, what kind of advice could you give them? Or, just one piece of advice, what would that be?
ask questions. I think that's the biggest thing. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Go up to people, even if you're scared. I mean, there's so many times in this industry where you think, oh, asking someone for coffee is like the biggest deal in the world. You're like, oh, I have no idea if they'll like me, if we'll have a good conversation. But most of the time, people will say yes. People want to help younger people out, especially younger agents. They want to see you succeed. So biggest thing is leave all your, I guess, judgments or opinions at the door and say, okay, I'm going to be open. I'm going to take everything in and I'm going to try my best to learn.
Great one. What about you, Bray?
I think, you got to be like Teflon out there sometimes and not, let it just roll off of you if they make a comment or if anybody makes a comment to you. Even a woman, if another woman, doesn't have a great tone with you, let it roll off of you. And, everybody's style is different. You got to try on a few before you, I think, find your groove. No style is wrong. And if it doesn't feel natural to you, change it up.
Mm-hmm. So I would say, to your point, Rachel, to piggyback, to always be networking. So we used to say always be closing, ABC. So I'm gonna say ABN, always be networking because if you actually, like you said, ask those questions and reach out. I've had more connections I've made sometimes even just on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
I've closed deals from, my presence on LinkedIn or somewhere, somehow someone got referred to me. So, always be networking. And I remember when I was in grad school and I wasn't quite sure which way in commercial I wanted to go. I knew it was brokerage, but I just wasn't sure what part. And I remember, making those asks, hey, can we go for coffee? And I talked with investment sales. I talked to everybody, title representatives and business development. I talked to everybody to help me, trying to navigate and figure it out. And it worked. And I was all the way in Florida and I made connections there back home, up here to, help me move into my next career path.
Yeah, and I think this is where 66 degrees of separation plays into place.
Hmm.
I mean, in our industry, we're so interconnected. There's no such thing as a cold call, as my colleague
Yeah.
Rob would say. So it's always nice. You can always make a warm call. You can reach out. Okay, go on LinkedIn. Okay, I want to look for the Buff City soap representative. Okay, so I know that they're connected to 5 people that I know. Well, I'm going to reach out to them and see if they can introduce me. So,
That's right. That is right. I agree. So, in addition, in terms of advancing your career, I know we touched on a few of those, moments, and I know Rachel and I we talked a little bit about, for instance, I have a YouTube channel. So, what do you think are some other ways to advance your career as a woman in commercial real estate?
I think going off of the, comments about LinkedIn and networking, social media is 100% our friend. And especially today, it's the era of social media. And if you can get your message out there and get a following and, be a presence, people are going to want to look at your content and that's going to grow your brand.
Hmm. Absolutely, I agree.
and I think more focused on women. Crew is a really great program,
Mhm.
and I
Hmm.
look forward to doing more crew events. And also just grassroots campaigning. Just say, let's go grab a lunch, let's go grab a coffee.
Hmm.
You know this market better than I do. Well, can you take me through it? Um, like this would be very helpful. It's more
Mhm.
about building that relationship past the office. So.
Right. I agree. And, also, I always say, when you're in business, you have to kind of reinvent yourself. And I remember when I was doing residential and there was the whole, 2008 financial crisis. And for me, part of my reinvention was getting into commercial, and I'm constantly learning. You
Mhm.
never stop learning. So I also joined, like you mentioned, Crew, and everybody who doesn't know, Crew is Commercial Real Estate Women. That's an organization, and I remember joining as a student member of Crew. I joined the Institute of Real Estate Management, IREM, CCIM, and their student memberships were like, nominal, like $20, and they embraced me, and helped me to connect me to people. And I remember when I decided, and I knew that I wanted to go after the CCIM designation. I just wasn't sure at first how to do it, but they have this new university partnership where they partner with different universities. So part of my reason for going to my particular grad school was because of that partnership. So it has definitely helped me, in advancing, because it's so well known and so well recognized. I've been on interviews and the person interviewing me didn't have the designation, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, wow, that's pretty good, So definitely constantly learning and being engaged in your profession. You never stop learning.
Mhm.
Yes. So, as we close out, ladies, any other closing thoughts or things you'd like to mention?
Rachel, do you have any comments?
I think just going back to advice that I could give other women or just even brokers in general is just stick with it. Bree and I actually were just joining the firm. She was 1 year ahead of me, but we were throughout the pandemic through it. So we've experienced so many roller coasters in this industry already. So I think the biggest advice I can give anyone is stick with it. I think if you stick with it, and look, what they tell you, 2 to 3 years, it takes that long. But if you can make 2 to 3 years, build up that pipeline, you should be golden.
That's great.
Yeah, Rachel, you were like a month before the pandemic.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
Yeah, you weren't even allowed to work. You couldn't even go into anything.
Rachel's there for like 2 weeks.
Wow.
2 or 3 weeks before the pandemic happened. That's right.
Yep, I was January 2020. I remember my heart sinking. I was like, did I choose the wrong profession to be in? I was going to be corporate finance, but I'm glad that I stuck with it.
Yeah.
I agree. I definitely agree with that, about perseverance. You definitely have to stick to it. I love real estate. It's like I eat, breathe, sleep it. It's like in my blood. I think when I'm like 70 in my rocking chair, I'll still be thinking about, a deal or how to put this deal together. It's just it's dynamic, it's fun.
Yeah.
And like we used to say in residential, like you're not as good as your last deal. Like, you know what I mean? You always have to, show and improve. And for me, as just a closing thought for, minorities in real estate, there's like less than 3% of minorities that are represented in commercial real estate. So I've been kind of campaigning to just kind of each one teach one. If there's, people have reached out to me, how can I make the transition as well? And I just try to be, a resource, to help and give any advice or give resources. I know someone had reached out to me, saw one of my talks I did with a client of mine who actually encouraged me to do YouTube because she's a really big YouTuber. And she said, I don't know if I can do the CCIM. She said, can you tutor me? And I said, well, maybe you should try this, foundations course, because they have like a, foundations for success. The National Association of Realtors also has, a kind of intro to commercial real estate, because it is different. It's not for, everyone, isn't or can't make that adjustment, but at least you can, be knowledgeable about it. And a lot of my business comes from a lot of my residential colleagues. So I just definitely try to be a resource and help the next one. So I thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Thank you so much.
And I will see you at our next lunch meeting.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Have a good day.